Alright, so this is going to be the first in a two-part video series dealing with authentication in React and Graphql. So this first video we're doing is going to be all about the back end, and then we'll handle React in the front end in the next one. But in this video, it's going to be we're going to be using Prisma and Apollo Server, and we're going to start off with this starter repo here. So if you go to this URL, it should be in the description also, and you can clone it here, and then go over to a terminal, and you're gonna run git clone. I already have this up and running, but git clone and paste that in, and then whatever you think you want to call it. So auth is what I called it, I think. So once you have that going, go over to your editor, whatever that might be. I'm using VS Code, but you can use whatever you want, and CD into that. And I've opened my integrated terminal, but you can do this from the regular terminal also. So once you're here, you're gonna run npm install, get that all up and running. I've done that again already. So once that's installed and everything's good, you're gonna run Docker. Oh, for this you actually have to have Docker running too. So if you don't have Docker running, I think we can go npm, what do we do if it's not npm run deploy --n, and that for Prisma, that should get you running on the Prisma demo servers. But I have Docker going, so if you have a Docker instance, we're gonna go docker compose up -d, and that should get your Docker instance running. And then once that's all done and good, we're gonna go Prisma deploy, and that should get you going. Now I've done all that, so I have my Prisma instance running already. Everything's good, so I'm gonna go npm run dev, and you can see we got the localhost 8383 running. So I'm going to go to that, and you can see we have a GraphQL playground here, which is a cool little editor where we can test our queries, and that's how we're going to be testing our backend before we have any sort of front end up and running. So that's kind of the basic setup. Once you are there, we can kind of get started actually coding a bit here. So we're going to bring it over here, and we are going to go into our type defs and create our schema here. So the first thing is we just have a hello query here, but we can kind of get rid of that. And the first type we want to create here is going to be a user type, and that is going to be, oh, got some clipboard issue here, and that's going to have an ID of ID, and it's going to be required, and that's what the bang is at the end here. So that means it's required for your schema. And then we're going to have a username, and that's going to be a string type, and that's also going to be required. Okay, so those are our first, that's our first type that we're going to need. And then we're just going to have, other than that, we're going to have our queries and our mutations. So come down, give ourselves a little bit of room, and we're going to go type query, and that's just going to have a current user, so we can see what the current user is, and that's of type user, and that's also going to be required. And then we can go below that, and this is where we're going to do our registration and our login. So this is going to be our authentication. So mutations, type mutation, and we're going to have two of them. The first one's going to be register, and that's going to have a username, which is going to be a string required, and we're going to have a password. That's going to be a string required, and those are all going to be of the user type. So that's great. And then the second one, here is going to be our login. So let's see, that is going to again have a username, and that's going to be a string, and a password. And that's going to be a string also. And those are both required again. And then we're going to have a login response, it's going to be called. And we're going to create that below. And that's required. And then below that, we're going to have a type, and that's going to be our login response. And we're going to have a token, and that's going to be a string. And we're going to have a user, which is going to be a user. Okay, so that should, oh, we got an issue here, and it is query.hello defined in resolvers but not in schema. So we took away the hello query or the hello type in here, so but we have to take it away in our resolvers also. So we're just going to get rid of this here. I think we can leave a blank query there. Let's see if that, okay, yeah, that works fine. So going back to our type defs here, we want to go and create a register our user. So we're going to go and create our registration mutation in our resolvers file. So come down here to our resolvers file, and we're going to need to use something called bcrypt.js in order to encrypt our password, because we don't want to save that or use that, show that to the world. So what we're going to do is go over to our terminal here, and we're going to run npm install bcrypt.js, and we'll wait a second and let that install there. Once that is up and running, we're going to come up to the top of our file here, give us a little room, and we're going to import bcrypt up here. So we're going to go const bcrypt, and that's going to equal require to be bcrypt.js there. Okay, so that looks good. And now we're going to first create our registration mutation. So we're going to go into our resolvers, and if we take a look here, this is where all this is happening. So our server, our Apollo server, is set up here. So we're going to import our type defs along with our resolvers. So if we look in our resolvers here, we want to create a mutation, and that's going to be register, and that's going to be an async function. And this takes a few things. So the first one's parent, the second one's the arguments, and we're going to destructure here. So this normally might be something like args, and that's where all your variables that you pass in for your front end are going to go. But we're going to destructure here so we can pull off the username and the password. And then ctx, which is your context, and then info. And parent and info aren't used as much, but you might come across them, so just put them there anyways. And then we're going to have, this is where, so we're going to hash our password. So we're going to go const hashed password, and that's going to equal await, because it's an async call here, bcrypt dot hash. So hash is the function on bcrypt, and we're going to go password, and then we're going to put a salt, so that is 10 there. And then next we're going to go const user equals await, and we have ctx dot prisma dot create user, and this is how we're going to create our user. We're going to pass in our username and our password, which is going to equal, again, this will be username, normally be username, or username like that, but ES6 we can just pass in username. And we need that comma there. And then we're gonna go hashed password, and that's the password we hashed up here. Okay, so once that is good, we're gonna come down here and we are gonna return that user back out. And that should be good. Looks like it saves all right. So we're fetching the username and password from our args here and hashing our password using bcrypt. And then after that, we're going to store those details using Prisma. So we have we can access Prisma off our context, and again, that's here because we're passing the Prisma instance of the object here. It's done. We can now access the playground, and we can test it out here. So let's go over here to, that's not it, there we go. Okay, so now we're looking at the playground here, and we can go ahead and we can actually test our register mutation here. So we want to go mutation, and it's a nice kind of autocomplete they have here too. And username, and we'll go Darwin, if I can spell Darwin, and then our password, we're gonna go, we'll just put a password for now, and then after that you want to put what you want to get back. So that is our ID and our username. So if we run this query, we can see that we get back our username and our ID. So that means that that worked fine, and you can see that we're kind of good to go there. So now we want to move on to the next mutation, which for us is our login mutation. So we are going to go back over to our resolvers here, and we're going to need something else here. So we're going to go back here and we're going to install something called JSON web token. So we're going to go npm install, and this is going to create a web token so that we can remember users. Looks like it installed just fine. So we got JSON web token going here, and we're going to go back to our resolvers right here. And at the top of the file, we're going to bring it in by going const jwt equals require, and that's going to be JSON web token. And then we're going to go here. So we're going to need a few things here. So the first thing we're going to do is say login, and this is going to be similar to the register mutation. So async, and then again we're going to have parent and username and password, and then again our context and our info, and that's going to be a function, and we're going to go const user is equal to await ctx, the context dot prisma dot user, and we're going to destructure again and go user name. Okay, so that's good. Let's bring it down a little bit. So now we want to test if there is a user. So if that user exists, or if there's not a user, we're going to throw new error, and we're just going to say invalid login. Okay, and then we're going to come down and we're going to go const password match is equal to await bcrypt dot compare. So this is a function off bcrypt that's gonna create compare our password with the user password that is passed in. So first one's gonna be a password, which we've destructured rather above, and then user dot password. And then again, if those passwords, if there is no password match, so if those do not match, we're going to throw an error there. And we're going to say invalid login. So those kind of are our checks. And then this is where we're going to sign with our JWT token. So we go const token is equal to JWT.sign. And we're going to go ID user.id, and username is going to be user.email. Okay, so that's looking good. And then the next thing we're going to want to sign with here is a user.email. Then we're going to want to add some sort of secret. So this is a secret. Should be anything, but we don't really want to put our secrets right in the file because we want to commit it to Git or anything that could be an issue. So we're going to actually look up another program we're going to want, and npm, and it's called .env. So let's see here. This is the package we want. So we're going to go here. We're going to copy that, and then we're going to move on over here, and we're going to go npm install. Should I just copy that? npm install .env, and this is going to be a place where we can store our secrets. So we're going to wait for that to install, and in the meantime, let's go over here, and just in our root folder here, we're going to create a new file. And it's going to be a .env file. And this is where we can store any sort of secrets or whatever we need. So in here, we're going to have something called Prisma _secret. And you could call this something else if you wanted. And equal to, and we're just going to have a random string here. Whatever. So that's good. And we're going to go back here to our resolvers, and we can actually first we're going to go to our index, I think, because we want to bring in the .env pretty high up in the chain. So above here, we're just going to go require, and it's .env .config, and we want to put this just high up, so in our index file. That way our whole application will have access to all of the secrets that we store in our .env file, so we can store whatever else in there too, and our we'll have access to that as well. So let's see here. I'll erase this here, and we're gonna go process.env .prisma _secret, and that should give us our Prisma secret. So we're signing it with our Prisma secret, so those have to match as well. And then the last thing we want to put in here is expires in. So expires in, and that's we're gonna say just 30 days. So that token will last for 30 days. And come down here, and we are gonna go and return our token and our user. Save that. So now we should be able to go and check out and see if that works. So again, we can go back to the playground here and see if this is working for us. So you can have a new tab here and we can go Authentication, login, and we're going to put our username, and that was Darwin, I think. Let's see, make sure. Let's just copy this, make sure we don't make any errors. And we'll copy that over here. Username and password, okay, and then we're gonna go get back the token and the user with the ID and the username. Oh, don't need to save that. So let's see if that works, and it does. So we're getting back, this is our token, our JWT, and that will be stored in a browser, and then this is the info we're getting back. So that looks like it's working pretty good, and it's all good. So now we want to be able to populate the context with this user info so that we have access to that. So we're going to go back over to our index.js file here and change some stuff up here. So let's see what we got to do here. So the first thing we want to do, let's give ourselves a little bit of space here, is to create this function called getUser. So we're going to go const getUser, and that's going to take a token, and we're going to put this in a try catch block. So this is going to be try, and then we're going to say if there is a token. Okay. And we're going to return jwt.verify, and that'll allow us to verify the token. Process.env. Again, so again we can use the Prisma underscore secret here, and that's good for that. Let's see what we've done here. Good, and we're going to return null in that instance, and then we're going to do a catch here, and that's going to be an error. So if we throw an error there, we're going to return null. And I think I have an extra set of brackets here, is that right? Doesn't look right. Something's missing. All right, so we're going to want to create a function here, and that's going to be called getUser, and it's going to take a token, and it's going to return. We're going to actually first put this in a try catch block. So try. Nope, that's not it. Try, and we're going to see if there is a token here. And if there's, we're going to return gwt.verify, and we're going to verify if the token matches process.env.prisma underscore secret. So if those match is what we're going to verify there. And otherwise we're going to return null. And then here we're going to add our catch statement here. And if there's an error, we are going to also return null. Okay. So that works for that. And then we're going to come down over here and add a few things. So we're passing in our type defs, our resolvers, and then our context. This is where we're going to change things up a little bit here. So in our context, we're going to want to go and destructure the request coming off. And we're going to turn this into a function here. And we're going to add a couple things here. So the first thing is going to be token with bearer. So that's the bearer token. That's going to be equal to rec.headers.authorization or an empty string. And then we're going to go const token is equal to token with bearer dot split, and we're split on the empty string, and that's we're gonna get the first element out of that, and then we're gonna go const user equals, and we're gonna call our function we created above, get user token, and then that's good. And then we are finally going to return user. That's not it. Finally going to return user. That's good. And we're going to bring up Prisma also. Okay. So I think that's all we need for here. We're creating our server, we're passing our type defs, our resolver, we're passing the request to the context, checking if our authorization token's there, and passing it in along our user along with the Prisma to each instance. I think that should work for us, so we'll go ahead and save that. And now we can go back to our resolvers, and we can create below our test to see if we can get our current user. So we're going to come down to the query here, and we are going to go current user. And again, same thing as mutations, so parent. Now we're not destructuring anything here, so we're just going args. And then we're going to destructure off of this our user and the Prisma object here, and that's going to be a function, and we're going to go if there is no user, then we're going to throw an error, throw new error, and we're going to say not authenticated. Okay, so that's good. And then we're going to return, if it does work out, return prisma.user, and we're going to pass in ID as user.id. Okay, so that looks like it should be okay. So now that that looks okay, let's go back to our playground here, and let's create a new tab. And for queries, for mutations, you write mutation, but queries you can just do in brackets. You can write query too, but you can just do in brackets. So we're going to get current user, and we're going to go ID, and we're going to go username. So this should actually throw an error because we're not passing in any token or anything. So we see cannot read property authorization of undefined. So because we haven't passed in our HTTP header here, it shouldn't work. That said, if we go ahead and create our or get our token here, so we're just going to copy this here, copy that over, and we're going to put it here below. So this is how it has to look. So we're going to go authorization in double quotes, and then we're going to go bearer, and we're going to go, and again, this has to be one string. So now once this has been put in, bearer, and then our token, all in one string, let's see if we can get this to work. It looks like we have a couple issues here, so let's head back over to here. And one thing we had wrong was we have to bring in the JWT. So const JWT equals required JSON web token, so make sure you have that. I missed that before. And then also, I think we have headers, not headers. Boom. So you gotta make sure you spell things correctly, I guess. Silly me. Okay, so let's go back to our thing here and refresh the page. And let's get our login token again. So that works again here. So let's copy that over. And we're going to go to our current user and replace this with a token that we just had here. And make sure that's again one string. So once that is up and going, let's see if that works. And it does. Boom. We're authenticated. Our current user, we're getting that from the context. We're looking good. And that is basically it. So let's go through this a little bit here again. So we've added these things to the index. We created our types, type defs here. This is our schema. We have our user, current user. That's where we're getting there at the end. Our mutations for register and login, and the response that we get. And then in our resolvers, we're creating our register resolver, passing in our username and password, hashing the password, and then in our login, again, username and password, we're checking if they match with bcrypt using the compare function, throwing errors if they don't, and then adding the token to the user if they do. And then again, this query to get our current user. So that's quite a bit of stuff there. And then our index, we created a function called getUser and passed in our token to verify if the secret's the same as the token passed in. All right, so I think that's pretty good for now. That's our back end. Next video, we're going to be looking at the front end and creating a bit of a UI in order to get this going.